In 1978, before there was Jason, Chucky, or Freddy, there was The Shape. Halloween redefined the horror genre by popularizing the slasher horror film and inspired a wave of mass killers going into the 80s. What inspired the making of Halloween? What was the original design for Michael Myers' mask? And who is the original actor offered for the role of Dr. Sam Loomis that regretted passing on the role for the rest of his career? Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Montgomery and welcome to Bloody Good. Today we're taking a visit down to the all too quiet streets of Haddonfield. When Halloween was released in theaters, it was a hit and went on to inspire a wave of masked psychopaths to pick up the knife. From Jason Voorhees to Ghostface, the presence of Michael Myers can still be felt to this very day. The film follows school student and babysitter Laurie Strode on the eve of Halloween. Unbeknownst to her, a murderer has escaped a mental hospital, and after murdering his sister 15 years earlier, he has returned to Haddonfield to kill again. But what was the inspiration for the original Boogeyman? Well, for that we'll have to go a little further back. While at college, John Carpenter visited and toured a psychiatric hospital. During this tour, he had a chance encounter with a child who left a deep impact on Carpenter as the child stared at him with a, quote, look of evil, and it terrified me. Now, this would stick with Carpenter long after his tour, which I do want to highlight because in all my research, I, for the life of me, cannot figure out why he was at a psychiatric hospital. I mean, the man went to college for an English major and a history minor and then transferred to a film school, so why was he... Anyway, moving on. Moving forward a few years and Carpenter is on the rise. He even has the opportunity to meet one of his inspirations, Bob Clark, the director of Black Christmas, which is what some might say is the first slasher, but I'll leave that conversation for the comments to argue about. During the meeting, Carpenter expressed his enthusiasm for the film and asked Clark if he would ever want to do a sequel. Clark said no. When Carpenter pressed forward like the fanboy he was, he asked what would he do if he did a sequel, and Clark responded saying that if he was to do it, it would be the next year and the guy would actually been caught, escape from a mental institution, go back to the house, and it would start all over again, and I would call it Halloween. With these blueprints for a horror legend in the making swirling around in Carpenter's mind, he wouldn't get his chance to complete this vision till 1976. Carpenter had just had a screening of his film Assault on Precinct 13 at the Milan Film Festival when independent film producer Erwin Yablons and financier Mustafa Akkad sought out Carpenter to direct a film for them about a psychotic killer that stalked babysitters. They wanted a film that would have the same cultural impact as The Exorcist, and when it came to negotiate the terms of Carpenter's contract, Carpenter came with demands. He agreed to direct, write, and score the film for $10,000 with two caveats. Number one, that he had full creative control, and number two, his name was to appear alongside the title. Carpenter immediately hired his then girlfriend at the time, Deborah Hill. Hill would go on to write most of the dialogue for the female characters, while Carpenter concentrated on Dr. Loomis's speeches. It took them 10 days to write the script, according to most accounts, but Hill has gone on to say that it was probably closer to 3 weeks. Now, superfans of the franchise may think this is the point I'm going to mention the film's original title, The Babysitter Murders. And if all I was doing was scrolling through the trivia section of IMDb, I may do. But this is not that kind of show. No, according to the producer Yablans, the film was always intended to be called Halloween, and this is nothing more than a long and outdated rumor. The original ideas and motivations for the script, according to Carpenter, was that Halloween night, it has never been the theme in a film. My idea was to do an old haunted house film. The name for our killer was not in fact inspired by a groovy ogre, but was a homage to the real Michael Myers. In a 2003 documentary, Halloween, A Cut Above the Rest, Carpenter revealed that it was a British film distributor, Michael Myers, who helped get his film Assault on Precinct 13 into the London Film Festival and wanted to honour him for this. So naturally he named him after a psychotic killer. Fair enough. As production began, the film secured a budget of $300,000, which ballooned eventually to $325,000, and then once again, but we'll get on to that later. To create the iconic killer, duties fell on Tommy Lee Wallace, but with a limited budget, Wallace had to get creative. 2 masks were made, the first being a repurposed Don Post Emmett Kelly Wallace attached with red frizzy hair to the mask. And everyone on the production agreed this was incredibly creepy, which, yeah, I mean, look at it. The second mask concocted by Wallace was made of an old William Shatner mask purchased for just $1.98. Its eyebrows and sideburns were ripped off, the skin was painted white, and the eyes were cut to be larger. After the crew saw the mask, everyone agreed this was the far superior, creepier mask. When it came to casting the lead of Laurie Strode, Carpenter had his eye on a specific actor to play the role. No, not her, at least not yet. Carpenter originally was interested in Anne Lockhart to play the role of Laurie Strode. However, for a non-specific reason, she passed on the offer. This is where Hill would step in. One day during the auditions for another character, a 19-year-old Jamie Lee Curtis walked into the audition room. Impressed with her performance, Hill asked her to read for the part of Laurie Strode, and the rest is history. But what sealed the deal for her was family connections. You see, Curtis was the daughter of Janet Leigh, who was not only a star in her own right, but had starred in a little movie you might have heard of called Psycho, which some might call the original slasher. The producers thought that this connection could help market the film and give it some horror street cred. When it came to the part of Dr. Loomis, they knew they needed a thespian who could deliver long and dramatic monologues, so of course, they knew they needed a Brit. Carpenter had 2 actors in mind for the role. The role was first offered to Peter Cushing, who you may know for his role as Grand Moff Tarkin, and he turned it down on account of the low pay. The second on the list was Sir Christopher Lee, who passed on the role due to the film's low budget. He would later go on to say turning down the role was the biggest mistake of his career. Striking out twice, the role landed on the desk of Donald Pleasence, who accepted the role. Carpenter was a fan and frankly intimidated by the seasoned actor. When they first met, Pleasence was frank about his opinions on the script, saying, "I don't know why I'm in this movie, and I don't know who my character is. The only reason I'm doing this movie is because I have alimony to pay, and my daughter in England is in a rock and roll group, and she said the music that you did for Assault on Precinct 13 is cool." He was paid $25,000, with this increasing the budget once more. To bring the boogeyman to life, they brought in the talents of Nick Castle, but it wasn't just him behind the mask. Tony Moran played Michael during the unmasking scene. Wallace donned the latex mask during the closet scene. Jim Byrne was used for the stunts in the film. Will Sandin played Michael as a child, with Hill filling in for his hands during the POV shot in the opening, and even wearing the boiler suit for a few scenes too. Carpenter himself slipped into the costume. Apparently, this was due to the production's budget and run-and-gun atmosphere. The Shape was basically just played by anyone who was free and on set at the time. Now, they had the actors they needed for the role. It was time for filming to begin. It was May 1978 when cameras started to roll, and I know what you're thinking. Wait a second, isn't this film set in Halloween? Yes. And this created 2 significant headaches for the film. The brown leaves in the film were simply paper and painted orange, and they would be scattered on the street during filming, and due to the film's low budget, they had to collect them after each sequence. Just ignore how green most of the trees are in the film. Another issue with filming in May is the fact that it was actually really difficult to find any pumpkins used in the film. They managed to find 3. Yep, only 3. So the scene where one is dropped on the ground, they only had 1 take of that. Later on, the production managed to find some green pumpkins and they just painted them orange. For the creepy Myers home used in the film, it actually started like that. When the production found it, the home was derelict and it was used as is for the majority of the film. For the opening scene of the film, the whole crew pitched in. They cleared the house out, painted it, put up wallpaper, and even went as far to install electricity and water when needed. And by the end of production, they had to take it all out again. The opening scene itself took an entire night of shooting, and production only stopped when the sun started to rise. Over the 20 to 21 days of shooting, Pleasence shot all of his scenes in just 5 days, and he was not a happy man during the production. So much so that allegedly, according to the crew, during the scene where he's talking to the nurse in the car about Michael, Pleasence had drank 2 bottles of wine, but hey, the scene's amazing, so whatever works for you, bud. It was also during the scene with the nurse in the car, they used a little bit of movie magic. When Michael smashes the window with his bare hand, they ensured he would do this so by hiding a wrench in the palm of his hand and painting it to match his skin. And yeah, it's still pretty visible. After Curtis's first day of shooting, the 19-year-old felt disappointed with her performance, so much so that she was convinced she would be fired, and that night the phone rang. It was Carpenter. He called to tell her he was very happy with her performance and just put her mind at ease. After the hectic almost 3 weeks of shooting, they were finished, and while the actors were done, Carpenter's job was far from finished. Carpenter was still responsible for composing the score for the film and managed to not only do just that, but created one of the most iconic horror soundtracks of all time in just 4 days. Halloween was released on October 27, 1978 and went on to gross $47 million at the US box office. Not only did the film smash the box office, it also impressed critics. Famous reviewers Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel were once asked what was the scariest film they'd ever seen, and they both agreed it was Halloween. So much so that after Siskel had seen the film at his local theatre, he took a cab home despite only living 2 blocks away. When he got home, he pulled the shower curtain back just to make sure there wasn't a boogeyman waiting for him. Today, Halloween has cemented its legacy as one of the great horror classics and helped usher in the age of slashers that terrorized the 80s. In 2006, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being, quote, culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. It was voted the 5th scariest film of all time by Entertainment Weekly and was included in the list of 1001 movies you must see before you die. Yes, while Michael Myers may just be fictional, his presence as a horror icon peeks around every bush in every quiet neighborhood. What do you think about Halloween and its legacy? Do you think it gets too much credit or not enough? Let me know in the comments down below. And a special thank you to our first ever member, Roan the Hero. If you'd like to support what we do here, you too can become a member, where you'll receive script input, members only polls, and help us decide what video we'll make next. Also, if you like finding out about how horror films are made, check out our videos on Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th. In the meantime, I've been Montgomery, this has been bloody good, and thank you so much for watching.